Hey everyone, welcome. Today's a simple one. We're going to talk about how to take Wizards of the Coast's Curse of Strahd and run it as a sandbox game for ShadowDark. So we'll cover what's a sandbox, what I did to prepare for the campaign. I'll give you some tips and tricks on running your own sandbox. And I've created a few cheat sheets to help me run the campaign. I'll even post those in the links down below. Now, I'm a referee. I assume I'm speaking to other referees, so there will be some spoilers if you're a player, minor spoilers. If you're new here, I'm John. Welcome to my gaming nook and channel. I've been a referee since the 1980s. I love old school Dungeons and Dragons. These days we're playing a lot of ShadowDark, so that's what I'm talking about on the channel. Thanks for being here. So the first topic is, what is a sandbox? It's pretty simple. Instead of presenting a scripted story, you're going to present an environment where there's many different things the players can do, like an open world. A sandbox actually only needs 3 things to get started. So 1, some kind of a home base for the players. 2, interesting things to do out there in the environment, i.e. different adventuring sites. And then the third thing is information about those things to do, like plot hooks or quests or rumors, so that the players can weigh the risk and reward of different ventures and make good, meaningful choices. So it's pretty simple. The good news is Curse of Strahd has all of that. We just need to help improve the organization to make it easier to run at the table. So the first topic are the plot hooks. A good plot hook gives the player some information about the relative risk and reward of a course of action. Obviously I read the campaign pretty closely. I needed to look at things like what monsters needed to be converted, what kind of treasure is in the campaign, and along the way I created like an outline of which NPCs can talk about which adventure sites, giving the players plot hooks. So I'll bring that up on the board here. This is my cheat sheet of all the different plot hooks. If you notice, Barovia specifically is very information dense. So whenever you start a Curse of Strahd campaign, the village of Barovia is probably the first place the players are going to go. And you can see that they will learn a lot of different things in Barovia. I tend to think of it, if you've played video games, I always go back to Skyrim because a lot of people have played that one. Your players will have some kind of a quest log or quest journal of all the different things they can do. Like, no, I'm not going to join the Stormcloak Rebellion, that kind of stuff. You almost want your sandbox players to be doing something similar as they're collecting these ideas from different NPCs. And if you take a look at Barovia real quick, for instance, there's an encounter with Morgantha the Night Hag that can happen. And in Curse of Strahd, it's listed as an optional encounter. But when you look at how much information she has about the game world that's vital to the players, when we switch this over to being a sandbox, I don't think that can really be an optional encounter at this point. Now, I'm going to do this video in 2 parts. Today, this is going to be more about theory and the framework to set the campaign up. Next week, I'll do one that's almost like a campaign diary, like how did it work out for us? But to give you an example with Morgantha, I made sure when the players were wandering the streets of Barovia that they encountered her, that they saw that she's going door to door and basically kidnapping children so she can go cook them. And they confronted her, as they do. And she's like, no, don't beat me up, you big dangerous adventurers. I'm just an old lady. Now, really, she's an 8th level night hag that could rip the arms off of 1st level adventurers. But she's also an enemy of Strahd. She sees an opportunity for the players to possibly learn enough to take Strahd down. And so she's like, begging for her life, I'll tell you all sorts of useful things if you just spare a poor old lady just trying to make her way in the world. And in this way, you can set up an encounter that gives the players a lot of useful information. And I mentioned how a good plot hook helps you differentiate risk from reward. She can say things like, you're going to need a lot of information about your future, what you should do. Go talk to Madame Eva, the fortune teller at the Vistani camp right outside of town, which is, I guess, medium reward and very low risk, as opposed to clinging to the side of the inhospitable Mount Gacchus is the Amber Temple, a demon-guarded tomb where Strahd's deepest secrets lie. And as the players hear that, they should be thinking, oh, that sounds dangerous, but also very high reward. And in this way, they're able to start thinking through how all these plot hooks could hang together for themselves. All right, the next section of prep was making the things to do out in the world ready. And it's really two parts for me. It was converting monsters and then converting experience and treasure. So the monsters are pretty straightforward. We all stand on the shoulders of giants. There were some early people in the ShadowDark community who created conversion guides. I used something by Future Wolf and Matthew Dietrich. So thank you, gentlemen, to sort of batch convert all of the 5e monsters here. I'll post a link down below. I took a very lazy approach. If a monster was a spellcaster, for instance, instead of recreating the wheel, I just used an existing monster from ShadowDark. Maybe over time, like as we get closer, I'll take a fresh look at some of those conversions and see if I want to embellish them more. But this was a good way for me to feel confident about getting started by just making sure that I had a first pass on everything. Experience is a little more interesting and a little more technical. So if we start with the end in sight, I'm going to bring up this guy. This is the original Ravenloft from like the 1980s, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, which Curse of Strahd is an homage to. The original Ravenloft module is just the castle, and it assumes players will be somewhere between levels 5 and 7 when they go and have their confrontation with Strahd. Now, that's a little low in terms of level when you look at how dangerous vampires are, but it's balanced by the fact that if the players are doing the right quests, they'll be armed with super weapons like the Sun Sword or the Holy Symbol. So that should be our target for our Curse of Strahd campaign for ShadowDark. Is there enough experience and things to do out there in the world so that the players can get to be somewhere in that level 5 to 7 range when they're ready to go confront Strahd? So as I'm reading through the sites, I've got to tabulate the experience and see how much is out there. First, let's take a look at the cumulative experience needed for ShadowDark characters, because that was an important thing to get my head around. So I put a little table together for that. You can take a look. Players need somewhere between 150 and like over 200 experience points to be in that level 5 or 6 range. So that's our target. I want to be in the 200s. Then as I'm reading all the locations in the book, I'm adding up which treasures are out there, what's 1 experience point versus 3, and created a list of how much treasure is at each location. Here, take a look at that. So you can see there's about 180 experience points to be had out there in the world. The yellow ones are ones where I feel like the Curse of Strahd as written don't really offer enough experience for the amount of danger that's at that location. So I need to juice those up a little bit, and I'll probably just be using the standard ShadowDark treasure tables to add a few treasure parcels to them. The green one, Castle Ravenloft's really interesting. You'll see 80 experience points, so almost half of the experience at all the sites is at Castle Ravenloft. And what that should be saying is that the players probably need to raid the castle multiple times before they're ready to have the final confrontation with Strahd, because they're going to need to raid it, find things like magic items and treasure, level up, and then finally be ready to go confront Strahd. All right, next up, converting the items. We'll take a look at those. Several of the items are just ordinary 3-point magic items, but you can see that the legendary items are each going to be worth 10 experience points. So they represent major finds. And ShadowDark has this concept of boons, like oaths, blessings, boons, special rewards players can get. There's a lot of things you can do in Curse of Strahd as the players go through the Valley of Barovia that help push back the darkness and restore a little bit of hope to the peasants of Barovia. I'm treating those things as boons. So here's what I assigned for those. Right now, I just treated each one as the equivalent of finding a magic item. Time will tell if that's enough experience or if it needs to be juiced up a little bit. For right now, I'm kind of going with 3 points per boon. And then the last thing, because this is ShadowDark, there's carousing. I assumed the players will get at least 20 experience points over the course of the campaign from carousing. You get one downtime activity between adventures. It'll be up to the referee to gauge if the players go out in the wilderness, do something, and return to town. Does that count as an adventure for purposes of carousing? But I assumed maybe, yeah, they'd probably get somewhere between like 4 and 6 opportunities to do some carousing. And you add it all up, and there's at least 270 experience points in the campaign. If I juice up the treasure at some of those locations that are light, maybe we get close to 300. You don't want your players to be completionists. Like, they shouldn't have to feel like they have to exhaust every location in the campaign to be able to go fight Strahd. So in general, I think if there's 300 experience points out there and we want the players to be able to go claim 150 or 200 plus, that puts us in a comfortable range where they'll be powerful enough to go confront Strahd at the end of the game. All right, and the last thing, this is just some advice on approaching a sandbox campaign. Especially if you've been playing 5e, it's probably good up front. The first time you're doing an OSR type sandbox is to let players know that there's no concept of game balance, that things that are in the sandbox world are going to be at a whole range of different power levels, and the player skill is for them to make decisions about what they think that they can handle. And running's an option. Or said another way, when they run into encounters out there in the world, they're not going to be fair and level balanced and safe encounters like you might experience in a 5e game. We talked about Morgantha, right? At the beginning, she tells them about the Amber Temple. Your first level players could say, "Ooh, that's what we need to do. Let's gear up and go to Mount Gacchus and explore the Amber Temple because we know about it." In an OSR type game, it's gonna be a much more dangerous dungeon. She literally said it's guarded by a demon. And you want your players to recognize that things out there won't be level appropriate, and there's times when they might need to run and reconsider their options. The next piece of advice is about sandbox preparation. People feel overwhelmed. Oh, I have to be able to prepare and run this whole world. But once you kick off your campaign, a really simple technique is at the end of each game session, you stop 5-10 minutes early, right? Hey guys, that was awesome. We had a good time tonight. What are you going to do next week? And get the players to talk about what they learned and what they want to do next week amongst themselves, ideally, and you're listening in. And in this way, you know what to prepare for next game session. You don't really have to prepare the whole campaign. You just have to prepare enough to be ready to run next game session really well. Sandboxes end up being really easy to run once you get going. For this one, there's just a chunk of work up front in order to make it ready for ShadowDark, but once it's running, it's very easy to keep going. The next piece of advice, make sure you establish a calendar, manage a calendar. There's going to be events that you're going to want to track on the calendar, and the nature of plot hooks in many cases create this, it's like an opportunity cost. If you're going to go do item number 1, you may lose the opportunity to do item number 2. I'll give you an example. So you're in a village, the mayor says, hey, in 3 days I want you to do X with me. And the players say, well, we're off going to do Y. If their quest takes them more than the 3 days and they return to the village, you want the mayor to say, oh, I did my festival, you were supposed to be here, you weren't, it's a disaster. I completely blame the players for it, and now we are enemies, or something like that. There's this sense that the world is a real world and that things are going to continue to happen even if the players go off and do other things. Like the world doesn't go into stasis. And the easiest way to do that is to manage a calendar and to map out certain events that are going to continue to happen even if the players aren't there. And for Curse of Strahd specifically, right, there's this supervillain that looms over the whole campaign called Count Strahd von Zarovich. And while the players are exploring his valley, he's got his own agenda. I think the easiest way to keep Strahd involved is every couple days have him show up. Maybe it's to heckle the characters, to attack them, to try to delay them. And he's carrying out his own things too. Like in the book, he's trying to turn Irina into a vampire. He's hunting a particularly powerful NPC in addition to keeping tabs of the players. So you can map all that out on the calendar. And so as the days tick off, you know when Strahd is going to take action. There's a saying, familiarity breeds contempt, and you want your players to be contemptuous of Strahd by the time they're ready to go have a confrontation with him. All right, that's enough for today. This is the theory or foundations for how I set up my Curse of Strahd ShadowDark campaign. Like I said, I put a couple helper files down below. I'll come back next week for a second video, which will be how this actually has worked out in the real world. Like, how did I get my players to Barovia? How did we start the campaign? How did they interact with some of these plot hooks, and how's it going? And that'll give you a practical example that you can kind of marry theory with practice. And finally, if you're inclined, please like and subscribe. You'll be notified when I post my next video, and it lets me know I'm doing a good job. I appreciate all the comments. See everyone next time.